So last night, I just got done making a big post about Donald Trump being rushed off the stage in Reno. And I know there's something to do with there was an airplane crash in Reno, Nevada on 9/11, the same day that Hillary Clinton fell over, a collapse and a plane crash on 9/11. And I even talked about how Reno, Nevada had a whole bunch of things that synced up to 9/11. They were like, it was a tribute to 9/11. And then, just before I went to bed, I saw this story. Janet Reno dies, age 78. And there's a bunch of interrelated things going on right now. In this video, I'm going to present a bunch of information, and I'm going to show you how a lot of this stuff is all connected. But I feel like I'm missing a big piece to the puzzle. So I just want to present it. But there's literally like 5 or 6 topics that all come back and they all sync up to these Reno things. And I'm just trying to figure out the exact purpose of what it all is. Or at least what they're exactly pointing us to. They're giving us clues, they're telling us what their plans are, but I'm not exactly sure how to read it. So let's look at the death of Janet Reno here really quick. Janet Reno, she dies age 78, and she was also the 78th United States Attorney General, dies 78, the 78th Attorney General. If you write out the word 78 or the phrase 78, it equals 60 and 159, just like if you write out her full name, Janet Wood Reno. So 78, a special number in regards to her. Also, if you write out United States Attorney General, it equals 112. It's just been a bunch of stuff going on with 112. Prince died on the 112th day of the year. The 112th World Series came to an end on 11/2. She also dies on November 7th, a lot like 117, and she dies from Parkinson's disease. If you write that out with the S and K exception, Parkinson's disease also equals 117. She dies of it on 11/7. The small way Parkinson's disease equals 72, just like Attorney General. She then also died, if you include the end date, 110 days after her birthday. She died in Miami, Florida, that equals 110. The word president equals 110, so we know it's definitely connected to the election tomorrow. In my post about the airplane crash on 9/11, I talked about the founder, or that Reno was named after this guy, Jesse Reno. His name equals 110. He was also born on the 110th day of the year. Talked about the 110 story World Trade Centers. Osama bin Laden equals 110. Rockefeller equals 110. If you write out 911, it equals 110. There's even a highway by the Pentagon, Highway 110. It's a super important number that's connected to 9/11. Even Adolf Hitler was born on the 110th day of the year. Adolf Hitler equals 110. Also in the plane wreck story, I mentioned how Colin Kaepernick went to college at the University of Nevada, that is in Reno, Nevada. And the team name is actually called the Wolf Pack. I talked about how Lupercalia, the Roman festival where they celebrate and sacrifice a wolf, and it falls over where it's a 3-day festival. Valentine's Day is the second day. Lupercalia equals 44. It begins on the 44th day of the year. I even talked about how Valentine's Day syncs up to April 21st because that is the day that Prince died, the 112th day of the year, Queen Elizabeth's birthday. Rome was founded on 4/21. 4/21 is also special to the Mormon religion, and I'll talk more about that as we move along, but Joseph Smith, or the Book of Mormon, it came from the writings of ancient prophets up until the year 421 AD. And think about Colin Kaepernick in regards to Alex Smith. Alex Smith goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, reminding us of the Native American theme that I keep mentioning. But Alex Smith played college football for Utah, reminding us of the Mormons. And Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, he went to BYU, reminding us of the Mormons. This plane was even called a Piper Cherokee, once again reminding us of the Native American stuff. So I've been trying to find out exactly what the spiritual meaning of a wolf is to Native Americans. Every time I've looked it up, all I can find is that it's different for each tribe and whatnot. But I wonder if there is some type of, summarized meaning for every tribe and then they have their own little thing. I'm not sure, but there's something going on with wolf that's super connected to the Mormons and also to the Native Americans. And I'll explain why I think that is here in a little bit. But anyway, the same day that Donald Trump got rushed off the stage in Reno, we had, let me find it here, the University of Nevada played New Mexico in football, and they lost. Nevada Wolfpack, they lost to New Mexico Lobos. Lobos is the Spanish word for wolf, so it was the Wolfpack playing the Wolves. I'll leave some links in the description, but the Colin Kaepernick stuff was super connected to Dwayne Wade's cousin dying and also to the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the death of their punter Sam Foltz. In the movie Teen Wolf, they have a whole bunch of stuff in the background of Nebraska Cornhuskers. The movie's not set there. The movie wasn't filmed there. It doesn't make any sense why they have Nebraska stuff. They even have a Nebraska license plate. And of course, Nebraska plays in Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, and there's even a part in Teen Wolf where he joins a school play about the Civil War. So Nebraska connected to Teen Wolf. We just had Kevin Garnett retire, the original Teen Wolf. Nebraska was super connected to Colin Kaepernick as well, because last year they just magically got a bowl game with a 5-7 record, and they went and played in Levi's Stadium, where the 49ers play, Colin Kaepernick. Levi's Stadium reminds you of the tribe of Levi that Moses was in. Most people think Lincoln freed the slaves, Moses freed the slaves. If you write out Moses, it equals 71. The Ten Commandments equal 71. Nebraska equals 71. Nebraska plays in the Sea of Red, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. And I've also been mentioning how there's a moon theme, and we have the extra super moon that is going to come on Prince Charles's birthday this year, November 14th. And just think about wolves and werewolves and whatnot in regards to the full moon. Anyway, at this game, the same day Donald Trump got rushed off the stage in Reno, in Albuquerque, where this game was played, the Wolves versus the Wolf or whatever, there was a lightning storm, they said, and it knocked the power out temporarily. So just very interesting that the power goes out at this game the same night that Donald Trump gets rushed off the stage. And if you write out lightning storm in Gematria, it equals 185. If you write out Donald Trump's full name, Donald John Trump, it equals 185. I believe World Trade Center equals 185 as well. Also, stock market crash. Lots of interesting 185s. Anyway, Colin Kaepernick also, the big deal with him is he's been kneeling for the national anthem. The Star-Spangled Banner equals 88 in Gematria. Just the word Trump equals 88. Mormon equals 88. Also, Kaepernick equals 48, just like if you read out Donald Trump. I talked about how Donald Trump super synced up to the Indians in the World Series. The same time we're getting the pipeline stories. But the Indians haven't won the World Series since 1948. That was also the year of the last closest extra supermoon. And also the year Prince Charles was born. On September 13th, we even got a story about this boat being found, and it was lost for 168 years, the HMS Terror, and it was lost in the battle where Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. Francis Key equals 48 in Gematria. Interesting that he died at the age of 63, and on the same day we got a story about this Baltimore Oriole player named Adam Jones, who said that baseball is a white man sport, reminding us of the Native Americans. You don't think, when somebody says the white man, I never think of African American people. I think of Native American people from movies and whatnot, the white man. You know, possibly other people think of it the other way. I just never think of it that way. But Francis Scott Key died at age 63. This guy's last name, Jones, equals 63. And the day that he said that, his team won 6-3, giving the Red Sox their 63rd loss. If you write out the word Native American, it equals 63. Also, if you write out Reno, Nevada, it also equals 63. Now we have the death of Janet Reno here, and supposedly she died from Parkinson's disease. But I mean, just think about that in regards to Muhammad Ali, who died on 6/3. He also died of Parkinson's disease. The real Muhammad, the prophet, died at age 63. And even funnier, tonight, we got the Buffalo Bills playing the Seattle Seahawks. Buffalo was where William McKinley, the assassinated president, he died in Buffalo, New York, just days after Teddy Roosevelt gave a speech about carrying the big stick. I also talked about how Obama, after his final State of the Union, he went to Omaha, Nebraska. Then the next day he went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where we got the Alton Sterling stuff the same day as we got the Philando Castile shooting. The Philando Castile shooting was in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. That's where Teddy Roosevelt gave that famous speech just before McKinley was assassinated. Obama gave a speech in Baton Rouge at McKinley High School. So all this stuff just reminding us of an assassinated president and whatnot. Utah's even the 45th state. Buffalo Bills equal 45. They're playing tonight on 11-7. They equal 117 as well. It's the 45th presidential. We're electing the 45th president. Also, in regards to William McKinley, Jesse Reno, the guy who Reno, Nevada is named after, can't remember what the battle was called, he died during the Battle of South Mountain. And the interesting thing about that battle was that two former presidents, or future presidents at the time, had both fought in that battle. Rutherford B. Hayes and also William McKinley. And Jesse Reno just so happened to die age 39, exactly 39 years before William McKinley died. And the 39, of course, is super synced up to New York. New York equals 39. Reno, Nevada, even located on 39 degrees north, 119 degrees west, reminding us of the backwards 9/11, 119. Just NY equals 39, Empire equals 39. What's interesting, too, about William McKinley, there's just lots of foreshadowing to the death of William McKinley that I've talked about in tons of previous stuff. But this HMS Terror, the boat that I was talking about, if I could find it here, it was a boat that went missing in 1848 when Queen Victoria was the queen. Queen Victoria even ruled for 63 years, and then Queen Elizabeth just surpassed her last year on 9/9 for longest reigning British English monarch or whatever. But Queen Victoria died in 1901, the same year that William McKinley died. Rutherford B. Hayes was also super interesting because, remember, he was one of the guys you always learned about in school, the Hayes-Tilden presidential election, where he actually lost the popular vote, but he won because he had one more electoral vote. He had 185 electoral votes to win, reminding us of Donald Trump. He was also from Ohio. The Cleveland Indians were from Ohio. The Republican National Convention this year was in Cleveland in Ohio. Ohio in Jewish Gematria even equals 117, reminding us of the date 11/7. This guy, Hayes, also dies on January 17th, a lot like 117. That's also the day Muhammad Ali was born. The word quarterback equals 117 in Gematria. There's a bunch of stuff connected to Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy Roosevelt. Even this election, the election in 1876, I don't know if I have a picture of it, but the election was on 11/7. And this guy also was born on October 4th, the day that leaves 88 days in the year. Trump equals 88. I found a bunch of 48 stuff in regards to these elections where this happened. Remember Al Gore won the popular vote as well, and George Bush became the president the same way. But anyway, the guy who lost, he died on 8/4 or also 4/8. And Al Gore was born in the year 48, and this election was also on November 7th, which I found interesting because when this one happened, it was exactly 112 years after the last time that it had happened in 1888, when Benjamin Harrison defeated Grover Cleveland. And this is the reason that Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms. But think about Cleveland in regards to the Indians. I even talked about how Grover Cleveland, in regards to Back to the Future and the Cubs winning, Grover Cleveland was the president in Back to the Future 3, and he also died 108 days before the 1908 World Series when the Chicago Cubs won. And that was the last time they won. 108 years ago, this guy dies 108 days before that World Series began. And then, of course, the Cubs beat the Cleveland team. It's so ridiculous. Benjamin Harrison is interesting because he's the 23rd president then. The only other president with the name Harrison was the 9th president, William Henry Harrison. He was the first president to die in office. The next president to die in office will be the 9th president to do so. A lot like a 99, the 9th president. But the 9th president and the 23rd president were the only presidents named, or Harrison. 923 reminds us of Pope Francis's visit to the United States. He came on his 923rd day as Pope, went to the White House the next day on 9/23 at 9:23 a.m. And I'll actually get into that a little bit more as it's connected to the Mormons as well. Pope Francis arrived in America at 4:04 on 9/22 then, and Joseph Smith was allowed to take the golden plates on 9/22, 188 years ago, before Pope Francis arrived in America. But anyway, just wanted to stick to these 48. So, whatever. This guy dies on 4/8. Al Gore was born in 1948. Grover Cleveland lost this one. Harrison in Gematria equals 48. And he won, but just interesting, another 48. The first time this happened was Andrew Jackson lost to John Quincy Adams. Andrew Jackson equals 48. John Quincy Adams died in the year 48. So just kind of interesting. Now we have Clinton versus Trump, and Donald Trump equals 48. I don't necessarily know who's going to win because of that, but just interesting that it's connected. Possibly we're going to have an election where, maybe Donald Trump's going to win the popular vote, and he's still not going to be the president. And then everybody will talk about the rigged system and whatnot that Donald Trump portrays, even though they're both on the same side, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, all controlled by the same people, all part of the same group. So anyway, let's look at some of the stuff that I had posted about Donald Trump being rushed off the stage in Reno. There's still something very significant about this May 13th date. A while back when they gave me a copyright claim, just after my Death of Prince video, they were really showing me this date. And I don't know what it is, but I noticed another example, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So, whatever, Donald Trump gets rushed off the stage in Reno. The reason was because of this guy, Austin Kreitz, whose name in Gematria his last name in Gematria, Kreitz, equals 74, just like Masonic. Just kind of interesting because Jesus also equals 74, Muhammad equals 74, and Kreitz, just sounds like Christ, kind of, possibly nothing. They also, people were going around saying a guy had a gun or whatever, and they made that very clear in this article all about gun. Gun equals 42, just like Freemason. And he was really just holding up a sign that said Republicans against Trump. When you write that out, it equals 121, like Revelation. Interesting too, R-A-T, if you abbreviate it, it's rat, rats. Who knows if that's significant? Just interesting. Possibly we'll start seeing something to do with rats. And I mentioned that it was a Piper Cherokee airplane that crashed there on 9/11 this year, connecting it to the Indian theme. But also all the 9/11 references in regards to that plane wreck and how Jesse Reno and whatnot, it's all synced up to 9/11 references, 9/11 tribute stuff. Trump equals 88. Reno 911, I looked that show up. It just so happens to have 88 episodes. Also, as I was reading through the episodes, just to read what they were about, the 5th episode, or the 13th episode of the 5th season, a lot like 5/13, the May 13th date that I keep talking about, it says, a Native American man claiming to be Deputy Trudy Weigel's father spends the day with her, which raises suspicion from the others in the department. And who knows what it is, but that 5/13 really stuck out to me. That was the only one that I saw that had anything in regards to Native American. The guy isn't really her dad in the show. It's just like some guy who's doing her or whatever, but she pretends that it's her dad. Her real dad supposedly died in prison, but the guy who's claiming to be her dad, his name is Two Wolves on that episode. That equals 154, just like Native Americans. You know, also in regards to 154 and the parallel to 63, June 3rd, 6/3, the day Muhammad Ali died. In a non-leap year, it's even the 154th day of the year, like Native Americans. Native American equals 63. It's also the date that leaves 211 days in the year, and Janet Reno was nominated by Bill Clinton to be the Attorney General on February 11th, 2/11. Just seen a lot of examples of 2/11 and 112 this year, and a bunch of things that I've talked about interrelated. I'll leave a bunch of links in the description. Anyway, in regards to 5/13, I just want to re-explain a few of them I thought of off the top of my head. So, I talked a lot about the movie Money Monster and how it was coming out on May 13th, and it had the 923 in the background even on the trailer. And of course, it also starred George Clooney, who in the Simpsons episode where they kill Prince on 11/2, they kill George Clooney, they kill Neil Armstrong, and they kill Prince. Neil Armstrong, you know, of course, supposedly the first guy to walk on the moon. George Clooney just had that movie Gravity, a bunch of other stuff I mentioned. But also the movie The Darkness, where I've been talking about, one of the only 2 movies that I went to see in the theater this year. It came out on May 13th. It's the one where Kevin Bacon's autistic kid, they go to the Grand Canyon and he steals the rocks of the Anasazi Indians, and then it haunts their house and whatnot. So just interesting. May 13th connected to the Indian stuff. The first conspiracy video that I ever put out on YouTube was on April 23rd of 2013, and it just so happened to be 5 months and 13 days after my birthday. And then YouTube started showing me May 13th stuff after copyright claiming an old video, and they did that copyright claim on 4/23 of 2016, so 5 months, 13 days after my 33rd birthday. And the old video that they claimed was about the movie 22 Jump Street, and I put that video out exactly 513 days before Prince died. So I knew there was something very significant about 5/13, and we even had Obama do the whole Snapchat where he turned into a demon and he said, Obamacare is great, it's really working. He said that right around the same time. In Gematria, that equals 513. May 13th this year was the 134th day of the year. I talked about how King Charles and the English Civil War is super connected to multiple events this year. Prince Charles has the possibility of becoming King Charles III. Anyway, May 13th, 134th day of the year. King Charles III in Gematria equals 134. If you write out 513, it equals 134. Even on the Orlando nightclub shooting, later that night we had the Tonys, And they were even honoring a play called King Charles III. And the guy who played King Charles III in the play, he was born on May 13th. 423 also was the day that King Charles II was coronated. So just something interesting in regards to all of these dates. Also the 114th day. That's a big number I noticed around the Cubs. The Cubs are in their 114th season being called the Cubs. They won the World Series, getting 114 wins this year. I even talked about the town that I keep mentioning with the first famous exorcism, Erling, Iowa. Erling, Iowa in Gematria equals 114. But I noticed that the street sign or whatever, when you come into the town, it literally only has 2 towns on it. It says Panama 5 miles, Dunlap 13 miles, 513. Dunlap's the town that I live in. And the town's named after Albert J. Erling, who equals 134. Became president of the railroad on 9/23. Even the death of Harambe equals 48, like Donald Trump. But that was connected to the Society of the Cincinnati that was founded on May 13th. The Cincinnati area code is even 513. And this even goes back into the boy being ate by the alligator that was just after the Orlando nightclub shooting. That boy got ate in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And I talked about how the college I went to was in Storm Lake, Iowa. It was called Buena Vista University. Buena Vista equals 114. Storm Lake equals 114. Google Maps even said I lived 1 hour and 14 minutes away from Elkhorn, Nebraska, where this kid was. The town I live in is the exact halfway point between the college and Elkhorn, Nebraska. But anyway, it connected to the Society of the Cincinnati because the Battle of Buena Vista involved the president, Zachary Taylor. His name equals 65. He's the only president to die age 65. And the last time that somebody got ate by an alligator before that Elkhorn boy, his name was even something Zachary Taylor. And when that guy won the Battle of the Buena Vista, he got inducted into the Society of the Cincinnati. We also had a Japanese earthquake on Black Mamba Day, 4/14, and they reminded us of the earthquake on 3/11/11 in Japan. Well, that earthquake just so happened to happen 5 years, 1 month, 13 days before. You know, amazing it happened on Kobe Bryant's final game. Kobe Bryant was named after Japanese beef and whatnot. Also in regards to all of the Teddy Roosevelt and William McKinley stuff, and Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy in Jewish Gematria equals 513. So, who knows? Just listed a few that I remembered. There was a whole bunch of stuff I kept seeing over and over. They were showing me 134, 135, and 165 like no other. And they all connect back to Freemasonry. Scottish Rite Freemasonry equals 165. If you just write out Scottish Rite, it equals 115. If you write out 134, it equals 115. If you write out 135, it equals 115. So, not sure of the complete meaning, but a weird thing that happened when I was writing this up last night is, for whatever the reason, I stopped and I looked up at the TV, and this was on right here. And the clock was stopped at 5:13. It's like, what are the odds of that? So I rewound it, and this guy had ended up scoring a touchdown, and then they kicked the ball off, and then the clock stopped again, and it was stopped at 5:13. I was like, what are the odds of that I'm talking about 5:13? Look up at the TV for the first time in hours, and it says 5:13 in the game. So like I said, just presenting some information. I'm not exactly sure what the 5:13 is all about, but the last thing I wanted to end this video off was explaining how the Mormons connect to the Native Americans. Even Jesse Reno, who Reno, Nevada is named after, he even fought in the Utah War, which was all about the Mormons. But I've made a few previous stuff, and I talked about how it's interesting that the Book of Mormon is based on the writings of ancient prophets who lived in America, which makes you think of Native Americans. I even talked about how the Omaha Indians were the reason that the Mormons came to Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is the starting point of the Mormon Trail. So I didn't really know that much about the Mormons or whatever. So the other night I just read through a bunch of stuff. I learned a little summary of, somewhat of what Mormons believe, and it actually is super connected to the Native Americans. Basically, to sum it up, what I got out of it was that people came from Jerusalem to America just before the fall of the Babylonians, and it was around 600 BC. And once they got here, they eventually split into two groups, the Nephites and the Lamanites, or however you pronounce them. But basically, the Nephites were the white-skinned ones, and the Lamanites were the darker-colored skinned group. And historically, the Mormons have believed that most of the Native Americans are from the Lamanite bloodline. So, just very interesting, as I've been saying, that somehow the Mormons are connected to this Native American theme that's going on. It even says, after the two groups warred over a period of centuries, the book says that Jesus appeared and converted all of the united Nephites and Lamanites to Christianity. However, after about 2 centuries, the book says that many of these Christians fell away and began to identify as Lamanites, leading some of the true believers in Christ to identify as Nephites. So just super interesting. They're basically saying that the Native Americans just quit believing in Jesus, and that's why they do all the pagan stuff and whatnot. And then later on, we're told that the guys like Christopher Columbus came over here and they tried to convert all of the Native Americans to Christianity. It just always all stems back to that. It's just very interesting. Also, earlier in the video, I talked about how the Book of Mormon is based off the writings of prophets until the year 421 AD, and all this other stuff in regards to 421. But, the Book of Mormon is also 239 chapters. Golden Gate equals 239. Torah equals 239. The Jews believe that the Messiah will return through the Golden Gate. And in 2015, which was the 239th year of the U.S., we had Pope Francis making his first visit to the United States, like I had said previously. And I even read an article where the land where the White House is was supposedly owned at one point by a guy named Francis Pope. But it just kind of makes you wonder. You can believe what you want, but it makes you wonder, when Pope Francis came last year, if they brought back the Messiah that they truly believe in, or something along the lines of that. His visit was just super important, and the year that he came was super important. It even connects to the Book of Mormon, which is all about Jesus coming to America, and the people that were in America were originally from Jerusalem. In regards to Golden Gate even, Golden State equals 122, San Francisco 122, Pope Francis 122. San Francisco and Pope Francis, both named after St. Francis of Assisi. He was the guy who received the first stigmata. Also, Pope Francis came on 9/22, which was the 188th anniversary of Joseph Smith being allowed to take the golden plates. In Gematria, Latter-day Saints equals 188. Latter-day Saints equals 188. Salt Lake City, Utah equals 188. I guarantee that's not a coincidence. And last year on 9/22, the 188th anniversary of Joseph Smith being allowed to take the plates. Also a big deal in regards to Pope Francis's visit was the train wreck in Philadelphia that happened at 9/23. The engine number was, I wrote 188 in here, but the engine number was 601, and the train was going 106 miles an hour. But it was train number 188. So just interesting, it was train 188. It was super connected. 9/22 is also something very important to the royal family. King George III, his coronation was on 9/22. Then Queen Victoria surpassed him for the longest reigning monarch. Queen Victoria died exactly 9,220 days before Elizabeth II was born, a lot like 922 there. Elizabeth surpassed Victoria on 9/9 last year, which if you convert the calendar to the Julian calendar, 9/9 on the Julian calendar is the same as 9/22 in the Gregorian in 2015. Even the French Republic was established on 9/22. Think about the Bavarian Illuminati and the French Republic. In regards to France, last year, South Park and the creators of South Park and the movie Team America was all connected to the ISIS attack in Paris, France, but the South Park creators are all about the Mormons. They have all about the Mormons. Even the movie Orgasmo, it starts off with them being the Mormons or whatever, going around talking to people. All about the Mormons equals 71. Everyone has AIDS equals 71. Right after that, we had Charlie Sheen coming out saying he had HIV. World War III equals 71. It's been 71 years since World War II. I've even talked about this number 217 and how it's special and connects to Michael Jordan and a whole bunch of other things that I've been seeing with 217. If you go from 217, which is also Michael Jordan's birthday, also the 48th day of the year, if you go from that and add 217 days, it takes you to 922. In Space Jam, Bill Murray is wearing number 22, but he doesn't come in until 9 tunes get hurt, a lot like 229 or 922. Last year, it was 22 years after Michael Jordan first retired after 9 seasons. 9 seasons wearing number 23. These two dates were very important. And even when you think about it in regards to the time changes and whatnot, in some parts of the world, 922 was the same as 923. Pope Francis from Buenos Aires, Argentina, that equals 217. Also this year, 7/6 was like an extremely important day. That's the day we got the Alton Sterling story, the Philando Castile story. It seems like almost everything that has been going on this year has been connected back to these two stories. Just tons of stuff in the media always seems to go back to this date of 7/6, which this year was the 188th day of the year. Brigham Young died at the age of 76. Michael Jordan's full name even equals 188. June 26th, also the day that leaves 188 days in the year, can be written as 26/6. Remember Pope Francis, the 266th Pope? 923 last year was the 266th day of the year. This year, 922 was the 266th day of the year. In 2015, this was also the day that gay marriage was legalized. Francis Scott Key equals 188. Also, Sam Foltz's real name, Samuel Noah Foltz, 188. There's just a big connection to the death of him and Mike Sadler this year. And if you recall, I was even talking about it last year, and because Dwayne Wade went to his first ever Nebraska Cornhusker football game because of his wife, Gabrielle Union. She's a big Nebraska Cornhusker fan and originally from Omaha. But last year, they lost to BYU on the Hail Mary, and there was all kinds of stuff going on in that game. I believe it was even the day that leaves 117 days in the year. Dwayne Wade also born on January 17th. BYU even equals 48 in Gematria, connecting to the Native American theme. Dakota Access Pipeline. Sorry, I know this video is long, but that equals 188. It's a super important number to these people. Or at least it's very important to all these interrelated stories. So just wanted to present a bunch of information. Like I said, I don't know the exact point. I feel like there's like a piece that I'm missing. Possibly it will come up in the future or whatever, you know. But one last thing I wanted to just point out really quick is we just got this earthquake story in Cushing, Oklahoma as well, reminding us of the 5.6 on the beginning of the football season, 9-3 or 3-9. But what's interesting is this place is called, the nickname is Pipeline Crossroads of the World. And then we got all these Dakota Access Pipeline stuff going in the news, so just something to think about. I'm sure there's more to this. I didn't really look into it. I just read the nickname of this town and I thought, that's pretty interesting. But whatever, have a good one.